The United Arab Emirates Minister of State for International Cooperation and Director General of the Expo 2020 Dubai Bureau, Her Excellency Reem Al Hashimy, says Dubai is ready to work with the world and Africa will be fully represented in a strong way. She also notes that Dubai will also be using the Expo as a platform to launch the Decade of Action for the Sustainable Development Goals. CNBC Africa's Chris Bishop caught up with her in Dubai to get more insight on plans for the Expo.
We're quite ready to welcome the world. Our Expo is in about 7 months or so, and 2020 is certainly our year. Our theme is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, and through this Expo we've managed to attract 192 nations to set up through the period of the 6 months. As you know, World Expos happen every 5 years for a period of 6 months, and this is the first time that a World Expo comes to our part of the world, which is the Arabian Peninsula, the Middle East, Africa, as well as Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. So a very large demographic to host this exceptional World Expo.
So what kind of building and groundwork is going on as we speak?
Most of it is already completed from the organizer standpoint, from the Dubai standpoint. What's happening now is that countries are building up and finalizing through their own pavilions. We have some pretty exceptional architecture, some very exciting new and innovative types of designs, but more importantly, some really exceptional programming inside those pavilions to tell the story of nations that have decided to come and participate here in Dubai.
And in terms of the actual putting Dubai on the map, how much of a big step forward is this going to be?
Well, it's part of a continuum for the city and certainly for the United Arab Emirates. Over the past 48 years or so, the UAE has constantly been able to attract very large events, very large mega events, if you will, but also really put its role and presence in international fora. As we look at the Decade of Action for the Sustainable Development Goals, we are really looking at this Expo as a platform to help launch that with all of the countries present. And it's pretty exciting because when you think you know a particular country or culture or history, you have the opportunity to experience that space during the period of the Expo, which is October 20, 2020 until April 10, 2021, but then also an opportunity to learn. And it's not about 1 or 2 or 3 countries, it's the entire world that is present. And so think about it this way, Chris. People can come see the whole world, enjoy and experience all of the cuisine, the music, the performance, the art, the culture, the business opportunities, all in one space.
And what kind of interest have you had from Africa for this event?
Alhamdulillah, the entire continent is coming. It's very exciting. In my cabinet portfolio, I cover sub-Saharan Africa, and I've been very proud to say that every African nation will be present, and present in a strong and dignified and powerful way in the Expo. This is a platform and an opportunity for them to tell their story, and we've had very divergent kinds of stories that could be brought to the fold. And the continent is really looking at this Expo as their Expo. We're simply hosting it here in Dubai.
And what it's going to mean for business, you think? Because I know these days, image is very, very important, especially when looking for foreign investors. You think African nations that get involved in this, what will it mean for them?
I think it's an incredible opportunity and a global platform. One of our main premier sponsors is Emirates Airlines and Dubai Ports World, both of which have very strong footprints in the continent. A lot of countries have new visions, Vision 2025, Vision 2030. They are far more open to business, and they're looking for a microphone that can help amplify those stories to a very global audience. And that's the advantage that the Dubai Expo can offer, not only to the continent, but actually across the board.
So, and in terms of the preparations, what sort of wrinkles have to be ironed out in the months coming leading up to the event in October?
So the biggest wrinkle, which we need a massive iron to iron out, is actually on programming. So what are the events and entertainment and also policy dialogues that we will be hosting? We currently have quite an impressive roster of folks that will be coming during the period of the 6 months to attract the 25 million visits which we are intending to attract for the duration of the Expo. Right now it's also about creating untraditional partnerships between countries. You've got your traditional players who tend to focus on water issues or focus on digitization or focus on youth, and then you have untraditional types of players that can actually come through this Expo to the fold and build on new partnerships, because I don't want to say the name of the game, but the ambition that we have is to continue to foster and build out those new partnerships. That's the strength of Dubai. It brings the whole world together. That's the strength of the UAE, its ability to dialogue, debate, and converse in multilateral fora about issues that matter to humanity and to human beings. And so through this Expo, we hope to be able to foster those kinds of relationships and propel them forward as we embark on a decade of action towards the SDGs in 2030.
Long term, what do you want to be the legacy of this?
So it's really important for us that when countries leave this Expo, that they leave it knowing that they have been able to, through this platform, share their story with the world and share their version of their story to the world through their own authentic voice. My country will celebrate its 50th anniversary in 2021. And for a nation so young to be able to host the whole world, for the whole world to also tell their story in their voice, in that authentic manner, I think would be the strongest legacy for us to be able to leave.
And also, a very recent announcement here, you've announced a $500 million investment fund for African entrepreneurs, which
Correct.
are very much fashionable right now in the news of the continent. What will this money be aimed at?
Frankly, this isn't really, it is a new initiative, but it's part of a tradition, if you will, of the United Arab Emirates in Africa, in my nation's history. And I mentioned earlier Emirates Airlines and Dubai Ports, but if I look at Abu Dhabi Development Fund and so many of the other organizations within the country's involvement in the continent, you will see that there have been or has been hundreds of billions of dollars dedicated to the continent over the years, because we have a long-standing historical relationship with sub-Saharan Africa and in particular East Africa, but we've certainly reached as well the western frontiers of the continent. The $500 million program combines Emirati private sector and UAE government to get involved in medium-sized projects in the continent with a true focus on youth and digitization. We look at different sectors like agriculture, for example, or tourism, but we're putting digitization at the heart of it. And right now we're super keen on also looking at healthcare and healthcare services, where if you combine digitization and healthcare, you really see a massive transformation as well. We have very strong ties with the continent. Last year alone, just as an example, the UAE received 24 heads of state from Africa. Our proximity, our affinity to them, our trade relationship, they stop here on their way to the Far East, has really created almost a natural relationship that has grown over time. This $500 million commitment is a way of further diving deeper into sectors that matter to the continent and that are aligned with where our own UAE private sector aim to go.
So if I'm a young, bright entrepreneur and I'm sat there in Dar es Salaam, sat there in Harare or Lusaka, wherever, how could this change my life?
So first I would use Expo as well as an opportunity to get engaged with us. We have an Expo Live program, which is a $100 million fund that actually scales up social innovative programs. And we've had about 16,000 applications with more than 150 grantees already. So if you're a startup and you're just picking up and you're looking for someone who's interested to hear your ideas, please go to expolive.com, because Expo Live is that platform for the young SME that's looking to scale. This $500 million commitment is for the medium-sized enterprise that wants to now triple its workforce because it finds an opportunity to be able to partner with another company from another country in a similar industry. industry. If you take agriculture, for example, we have incredible agriculture companies here that can pair up with those existing in the continent to be able to do something and have better water efficiencies and have better crop yields, and then have a larger access to a larger market.
So in the long term, what do you think it's going to do, you think, for the entrepreneurs of the continent? What should they expect from it?
I think it's part of a series of things. I would be unfair, and I would also be unauthentic if I told you it would change everything. It's part of a series of programs. This is another proof point that links the UAE to the continent. We are committed from a political level, from a social level, from a business level, and here is an opportunity to further signify that. And the continent is changing, as you know, Chris, and young people are coming to the forefront, and it's a place of excitement and optimism, and I think learning. I mean, I've had the privilege of traveling the continent and visiting every country in sub-Saharan Africa over the 9 years that I've held this portfolio in cabinet, and I'm constantly not just amazed but inspired by how they're taking charge over their own path forward and really building that out in a very exciting way.
And you seem to have a lot of personal enthusiasm for this. It seems
yes.
like you're
I'm half African somehow. yes.
I mean, what are you going to put behind it personally? I mean, how much effort?
Well, as I said, so from a professional level, I am responsible for sub-Saharan Africa in the cabinet of the United Arab Emirates. But I think on a personal level, it's a place where I see potential and hope actually come into life. And so when you hear a lot of sort of doom and gloom news, here's a continent that knows how to take charge on their own and on their own terms. And that's something I've come to really respect and learn a lot from.
And also talking about West Africa, where the majority of our viewers watching this particular interview are from.
Yeah.
You're very passionate about that too. And I understand Senegalese President Macky Sall was a recent visitor here.
Yes.
What is Dubai's role likely to be in West Africa in the future?
So the UAE continues to do a lot of work in West Africa. Senegal, as an example, we have a port that's doing incredibly well in Dakar. President Macky Sall, in his last visit here to the UAE, really covered what are other areas of opportunity. They recently talked about a housing project that they're putting forward. They're doing a lot on renewable energy as well. In the context of the Expo, we're very keen on bringing their artists, UC Denour specifically, to come and perform during the Senegalese National Day in the Expo, to serve Senegalese food, to look at Senegalese fashion. And really the Expo is a platform where we can dive that deeply in each and every country and expose it and bring it to light to the millions of visitors that would be coming.
And where else in West Africa are you interested in?
Across the board, so Sierra Leone, Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, of course. Guinea have an amazing program in Expo on water, and they're incredibly active with that regard. Really, I would say every country, and I think that's the. I know your program is focused specifically on Africa, but when I think of what the UAE does, what Dubai is interested in, and where the World Expo is oriented towards, we're looking at the entire world. Of course, given that it's in this region, it'll focus on Africa specifically, but we're offering this to everybody else as well, and learning a lot from it as we turn 50 years old.
And in terms of Africa and the Dubai as a springboard for investment, where do you think that's going to be maybe this time next year?
I think it'll continue on its steady pace of growth. It'll probably peak up even further because we're going to be receiving a lot more delegations that are not only government in nature but also private sector and artists, as I mentioned earlier. And so I see it as a propelling catalytic effect, and we from a government level are looking to open up new embassies on the continent as well to maintain that, not just G to G but also the people to people connection. And I know that many of our national airlines are looking to open new routes to the continent. So all in all, a really good positive trajectory forward and a very exciting path for all of us.